Why you gotta be so heartless? I know you think it's heartless. You're tearing me apart.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? So today we're going to be playing through our second day of our franchise here in Planet Zoo. Um, as you can see, we're going to take a look at what we accomplished in the first episode and also some little tweaks that I noticed in between episodes that I fixed. And again, I did not I have not decorated those buildings on the left yet, and I'm realizing that now watching this back, but I will get to those. Um, hopefully in the next episode. But this is a very building intensive episode, and the first couple episodes are going to be pretty time lapse heavy because we have to get a few of these enclosures in before we can kind of relax and let the game play out at normal speed. But here you can see we're planning on what we want to do with that area, which we're going to wind up doing later. And here's our first big portion of the time lapse. It's actually just building a simple information building. And as I talked about in episode 1, I wanted to focus a lot on like the classic wood look. I'm not sure it quite suits this looking back. It's definitely more of like a Western theme, or at least mountainous theme. It looks more like a ski lodge or a log cabin than it does like it's part of a zoo, but I think it fits. So I think we're going to stay with this style for a while, and as we get to other areas of the zoo, we might um, change up our style. I don't like building super modern. I don't think it looks right because all the zoos I've been to, and maybe it's just where I live or where I am in the country, but all the zoos I go to tend to be kind of built like this, where they're buildings that are 30 or 40 years old, and they take good care of their animals, but the buildings themselves aren't as well taken care of. You can see we're gonna mess around with this front roof for I think like 15 minutes. If you don't get a sense of how long these takes, this is at 4 times speed. So when I record these over at Twitch, these are usually 2.5 to 3 hour streams. And you can see here, I'm gonna mess around with this roof for so long, trying to get it all figured out. I couldn't quite figure out what the shape I wanted to go with was. And you're gonna notice I end up changing up the front of this building even after I get it like almost finalized. And it's because as I look at it, when I'm in a time lapse like this or when I'm in a build mode, I don't look at the building. Really, I look at getting as many pieces together as possible and just piling it all in there, making sure I'm being entertaining for Twitch, and then I take a step back once I'm done, and that's when I figure out if I really like the look of something or not. And I think that's a good way of building. Um, you know, get the foundation in where you like it, and then go back. Also, you're gonna see there, I used a little bit of a trick, and I've used it a couple times. I'm using it again here. When you place things inside of each other, sometimes you get a glitching texture. If you deselect something from a group and then use X and just slide it around, you can do what we were doing with the signs in the first episode, which was to get rid of that bugginess look so they're not glitching together constantly. And that's a good tip. Um, this second half of the roof too, it got me again. I'm not going to be too focused on the interiors of my buildings. I don't want anybody to be, holding out hope for me doing interior design in this game. There's just not enough furniture for me, really. I will make sure the outsides are nicely decorated, or at least to my mind, nicely decorated. But here you can see I am designing the second story of this. And I would always say, don't just go for that 4x4 look. Don't make a big box. Give a building some shape, some definition, some interest. Make it uneven. In the end, I think you're going to like the uneven look way better than a big flat building. So on this side, I wind up going for this, and I like it so much that I'm going to duplicate it over to the other side. I don't think I do that quite yet, but once I get the second or third story of this roof up, I take a look at it and I'm like, you know what? I need it to be even at least there. Like the bottom tier of the roof is uneven enough that I think that I should be all right doing this, but it wouldn't make sense to just have a big flat portion of the roof there. All the rain would get stuck there and it would droop, and eventually you'd have leaky ceiling. So you wouldn't design it like that. So here you're going to see me. I'm going to delete this all. Don't feel bad deleting, especially once you have a little bit of money. I did play through enough time to pay off that loan that we took in the first episode. And that was just because I didn't want to have debt. Um, and I didn't want to be worried about it when I came to episode 2. I wanted to have enough money to play around with. So as you see, we're going to get the, I would call this getting the shell of the building done. And then from there, it's all detail work. And I've got a couple cool tricks I'm going to show you. I'm not using this as a tutorial series, but like I said in the first episode, I'd love to share tips and tricks or things that I find really helpful later on. And I actually get rid of these back gables because I don't really like them. And you'll see we did something else with the back. And don't worry, that roof won't be floating there forever. We are going to get that, but that is part of the detail for me. So here you can see we put some flat roofs, but they're only like half sticking out. And then we're going to cover up all this in the back here. Because we do have that big window there that I'm going to use as almost like a sliding glass door. And here we're trying to figure out if we want to go with a different style of window. But I think the variety that we do wind up getting is super nice. This is a good tip too. You see these shop fronts? You can actually use these as windows as well. And this is that big window I was talking about that we wind up framing it and making it look like a glass door. That can be super tricky too with those windows. Sometimes they glitch into these log walls. And here I try out these windows, but I think those look too almost like ski lodge. These windows here look for more like a building that's been there for a long time. I wanted to make it seem like the zoo has been around for a while. You know, I think we're in year 13 of the zoo already, so any brand new corrugated iron that we would build for a roof would have probably been rusted out by now anyways. And I was talking about this in the first episode. Don't be afraid to like glitch some smaller pieces together unless you're running like a really low end rig, and then I would back away. I wouldn't do that as much. There, I almost went for the cross window and I said, no, we want it to be somewhat modern. And again, you don't have to take my tips and tricks on everything, but if you see something that you like that I do, make sure to give it a try and see how it goes for you. Here you can see I wanted to put like a step in because I wanted to make that look like a sliding glass door. Here we're going to start work. I wanted to make it look like it was sitting on like a rock foundation, or at least a concrete foundation that had been weathered for some time. And then I realized, you know, I'm a little far off there. I'm gonna cheat that back in, and I can cheat that back in as well. So now we're getting to where I kind of decide, oh, no, first we're gonna color up this. You see, I figure out that that red best matches those classic windows. At least to me it does. It's a little dark. I could have gone a little lighter. I think it was here that yeah. So here I decided that I'm going to actually edit the paths back there because you can't see them anyways. And I want to get these in this shop front in a place where it's actually inside the building so it looks like people are actually going inside. I said, you know what? I'm going to put a doorway there to make it look like this is a functional building. Maybe that's like a security office, who knows? But I want it to look like a functional building. It doesn't have to be a functional building, but now it is because now that is um, a shop that we have over decorated. I'll say that. It's definitely over decorated, which isn't the worst thing in the world. For something like an information center, it's going to be the first place your guests most likely visit or would have to visit. So doing something like this, I don't think is too big or too, unnecessary. We have wind up going with this store, and I know um, the padlock on the door doesn't really make sense considering we want it to be open to all the guests, but we're going to do some logs and we are going to wrap the door. I think we bumped those logs over the top a little bit. Now we're going to build some supports for this front bit of roof. So you can see we're just trying to get these logs in a place where it would make sense for them to be um, structurally. For some reason that roof did not want to go back in the right place. I probably should have just deleted it and duplicated one of the others. And I might do that in between episodes as I'm looking back now. But here you can see we get done with that and I instantly go to adding some onto the back as well. And I'm just putting these around where I want another door, and that'll be like a staff door. You have to use a little bit of imagination with this game because obviously I'm not going to wrap staff paths all the way around. It would be such a pain in my ass to do something that's ridiculously over complex. It doesn't need to be there. We'll toss in some more windows too, and now we're getting to a point where I'm like, okay, let's decorate the sides a little bit and let's get this thing done so we can get to building our enclosure. But it always comes down to getting nice decoration. So I am going to put a banister all the way around. I'm trying to figure out what I want for a banister. That one's too tall. That one's almost just right. It's a little bit too long. So we're going to swap it up and go for the 2 meter ones and just stick them into those logs. And they're white now, but we do paint those to match the rest of the window frames that we have built. Here we go around, and I realize that we've got some big gaps where you wouldn't necessarily just leave exposed wood. So we're going to go ahead and I do a little bit of funny stuff here where I rotate them way more than I need to. I don't know, just go with it. It works with my mind. You can see I'm trying to get it perfect, even though it doesn't need to. There is 4 sides where that would have fit perfectly, and it didn't need to be like that. There, we're going to wrap that. that foundation around so we can continue with the idea that this is somehow sitting on a foundation. And here we decide we're going to put like a step in. There we go. Not necessary again, but it makes me feel better about the build, so I'm gonna keep it in. And I wind up putting one there. I think begrudgingly I was like, ah, I don't want to put another one, but I put another one. And I paint those all to match as well. While looking for some letters, I actually stumbled upon these palettes and I realized how much I love decorating with these. We even slapped a an outdoor outlet out there also, and we moved that back just a little bit and moved that glass to the left where it's going to stick into a wall and not be seen. Now we're trying to figure out, we need some transportation for the crew here at the park, so we're gonna paint up some vans and they're gonna drive around with them. With the Jeeps, if you're gonna use them like that, I would not paint them super bright colors because you gotta remember these are wear and tear vehicles. These are work vehicles. They're gonna get dusty and dirty and don't be focused on it. And then I figured, you know what? We're an environmentally friendly zoo. That's how we get conservation credits. We'll toss a bike in there too. Maybe some of our workers don't like the cars, they ride the bikes. It's all about the conservation credits at the end of the day, folks. We put a vent, just something, little things. And these sacks too. They're not like necessary, but hey, throw in a couple of things here and there. The step ladder, just give you something else. The staff isn't always going to clean up after themselves. They might leave something here or there. Storage tends to go to the back, so we're going to put some more of these pallets in. And this might be merchandise that got delivered to the front of the zoo that has been transported in the Jeeps over to other places. And we're just looking for more details. Yeah, here's where we bring that out. I like when you get exposed log. I think it looks nice. And then we even toss like a tire in, like somebody changed the tire and just left it at the side of the building. I tried using those stars. For some reason, there's something with like tin stars or aluminum stars that everybody loves here in the States. They put them everywhere. Then we toss on a weather vane because it's a nice old looking building. Here we go. Now we're going to build the actual sign portion for this. I could have just left the information logo there, but I figure it's the big first building. You want your guests to see what's going on here. So we're going to slap together that, and then we're going to find something to put behind it. I don't like those planks. Those African logs, they don't look terrible, so we wind up going with them. And we'll just stick those everywhere we can. And I say, you know what, that sign's up too high. I don't think it would make sense. Why would you do that? And then I realized I forgot to click two letters. But there we go. We get it nice, right where we want it. Take a look back. I say, hey, this is looking pretty good. Let's toss in some lights. And for any building like this, I figure you have to use these style of lights. I think they're set for India, but they look like they'd go with a log cabin. And here I just want to add some detail up to this second story. Even though there's absolutely nothing up here, I just want something that's going to, um, little details like this just help to break up a build so it's not all just one color. It's super hard to build in this game with big 4x4 pieces. Oh, and here's a trick I love to use. Um, since there's no real chimney pieces in the game, you can use these stone barriers I think it only really works with this style. I haven't tried it on other styles, but you can use these stone barriers and build like a small 2 meter by 2 meter little enclosed space, and then just put like a smoke. Um, I think it's under ambiance and special effects. Just use a smoke effect here, and it just makes it look like it's a nice inviting place for people to come in. It definitely would fit a lodge more than an information center, but I think it looks nice, so we're gonna keep it. Here we're getting into the enclosure bit that I wanted to get built. So I'm trying to get it, something built on top of getting an enclosure built every episode. And I'm sorry if this is a little bit longer of an episode, but I wanted to get it all in. We go through so many revisions, and I think I find a species I want to put in, and I say, no, you know what? I just built an enclosure for one of these. Don't think I'm going to do it. I was going to go with these D holes. I don't know if they're called the holes or what it is. I'm not quite sure. I'll have to look that up, but I just call them D holes because I think it's funny. Um, so we were gonna go with them. I think we're gonna save that enclosure for next episode. I think I would rather do something a little bit cooler with them, and I would like to do like like a food court with an open window where they just walk right in, and they can, people can eat and be, surrounded by a D hole enclosure. So here you can see I get rid of this because I go, oh, you know what? I've seen some really cool suspension bridges being built on YouTube. Maybe I'll build a suspension bridge over the top of this. And then I went, no, you wouldn't need a bridge there. Later on, when we build some like rivers cutting through the place, I would like to, sorry if you can hear that. That's my cat messing around with this toy. Um, but I said later on we'll do something with suspension bridges. And then I decide we'll go with a walkthrough peafowl, Indian peafowl, or as we call them here, peacocks. We'll we'll go with one of these uh, walkthrough enclosures here. And I think it might be peafowl here too. I think only the males are called peacocks. That not to make a joke there, but I'm pretty sure it is the male. I know with male roosters are called cocks. So I'm pretty sure those are the peacocks and the females are just peafowl. Or maybe they're peahens, who knows? And then I decide maybe I'll build like an apiary class. Like I don't know. I was gonna build like this big glass apiary. And I decided, you know what, that doesn't quite fit the theme around here. So eventually we are gonna tear this all down, which for the amount of time we put into trying to come up with something I liked, I just couldn't find something that really fit with the information building. And as we get further away, we can make it look like the park's slowly getting newer and newer, like it would in real life. Your first couple buildings, they're old, dilapidated. It's, the curse of any zoo. When you first start out a zoo, it's got to be, you have to have started somewhere, right? So the first couple of buildings might look a little bit older and more rustic, and then we're going to start getting more and more modern as the zoo modernizes. So as we get more species and head further away from this area, we are going to modernize a bit, and then maybe we can even come back and modernize this entrance area, which would be a cool way to draw the series to a close, to come back to these buildings that I spent, all this time working on, and then modernizing them, coming up with new enclosure ideas. I think that would add a uh, ton of cool like story aspect to this zoo. It's um, like anything in Planet Zoo. It's a lot of imagination. It's a lot of doing what makes you happy. And right now, I'm on a rustic kick, but it makes sense because We're a 14-year-old zoo. We're brand new. We only have 2 animals. We don't have the money for big, expansive, modern buildings yet. So as time goes on, maybe we'll do that. Maybe we purchased up like an old farm, and that's what we're doing. We're slowly turning this old farmland into a zoo. That could be the backstory for this zoo. And then as we modernize and move towards becoming a bigger, more successful zoo with more funds, I think that would make sense. And if you guys like that idea, um, feel free to let me know down in the comments. And if you guys do like watching these, it's a good time to come over and watch on my Twitch. My Twitch is really chill, and it's it's a pretty small stream. So if you want to get a chance to ask me questions about certain things I do in the game or certain things that maybe I forgot to mention during one of my videos, that's probably like the best time to do it, or by leaving a YouTube comment, either or. Um, but for right now, I think a peacock enclosure makes sense. It's something way smaller, and I think it's a bit more manageable. A lot of people don't know this, but a lot of small zoos keep crocodilians because they're super cheap to feed. You can feed them like all sorts of meat and stuff that gets thrown out at the produce section, and they'll eat just about anything. But um, I figure that and bird feed are pretty cheap. So as we're a broke zoo, and I hate to say broke when we have $40,000 in the bank, but I think if we're trying to do this right and make it sense that we are starting a brand new zoo franchise in a continent that we've never been before, then yeah, it makes sense to have, two cheap animals to feed, animals that are easy to care for. Um, Not that I've ever cared for large gharials or peacocks, but I assume they're a little bit easier than something like a clouded leopard, something that spooks super easy. Crocodilians aren't really scared of people. They're actually one of the only species on Earth that will actively hunt human beings. And they do it in Africa. And I was watching a documentary on it, and it was terrifying. There's actually like a 28-foot crocodile in the Nile. It was supposedly 28 feet. Nobody ever got a true measurement on it, but it would hang out outside fishing camps and it would eat people. It was nuts. So, um, not to say that's the most easy thing to care for, nor would I want to be the one to care for it, but um, it makes sense that a starting out zoo with not a lot of funds would go for some cheaper, easier to maintain animals. Here you see we use a little bit of wood, and that's to kind of match um, the building that's right next to it. I didn't want to go all stone because you wouldn't see a building like that and then just have big stone. Maybe there's a lot of stone around it and a lot of terrain. Maybe we'll do a terrain episode where we come through and just mess with the terrain and get it to a point where we really like. Unfortunately, I did have to bump that wall up. I liked it when it had that smooth angle, but that wall was too short. I realized that you needed like 3 feet. Um, it's funny, I've got the measurements on feet for the Zoopedia, but meters for the what's it called here? All the buildings, they're all in meters, but it is what it is. I don't know, for some reason it makes sense. I couldn't explain to you my thoughts, but it's like in I play a ton of Hunter Call of the Wild and I stream that sometimes. For some reason in that game, I've never been able to convert from uh, metric to uh, standard. I believe it's called standard. Metric to what we use. And it's always really been super confusing to me why I can play that game in metric, but I still like seeing feet. The weight doesn't throw me off as much as the meters to feet conversion. It's the same thing with temperature. I couldn't tell you what a Celsius. You know, like what zero. I think 0 degrees is freezing point, and that's the only one I know. 100 degrees is, I don't know, where water boils. I think, but I don't know. I didn't like chemistry too much in high school, and that's about the only time I used Celsius, and then Kelvin, which is on a completely other crazy. I couldn't tell you what a Kelvin is. Here we made the mistake of building the enclosure with 2 guest gates, and I completely forgot to put a staff gate. But it's fine. We wind up getting that remedied. We toss in a staff gate and reconnect all the paths, and we're going to be coming to um, where we slow the video back down and get into some more just slow gameplay, because I don't want to overburden you guys with just time lapse after time lapse, but the beginning of this game is a ton of building. There's not much need for slow content where we focus on animals and trading and all that. It's a ton of building. If that's not what you like to see, then maybe this game isn't for you. It's just um, this game is very, very heavily focused on building and design, which is one of the things I love about it. You see there, we actually picked up an albino male, and he's only a bronze male, and I think we also get a albino bronze female, but I figured we had the conservation credits. There's something cool. I'd love to have them. Albino animals are. I don't know if you can. I don't think you can get melanistics in this game or piebalds or nothing like that. Though you wouldn't see piebald on these guys. You would see something like mottled or something where they're kind of like halfway in the phase of losing their feathers. But unfortunately, I don't think all those color variants are in the game for those species. I think it's just albino. But there are a genetic chance to happen when breeding animals. So over a course of a series, we might actually breed a couple of albinos, on our own, which would be super cool. I'd love to actually breed one. I think I've only ever bred one, and it was pronghorn antelope, which I had in my Midwest zoo. I based that whole zoo off the Rockies, and it was super cool. I had uploaded, I think, just the entrance to the Steam workshop, so maybe I'll put something to that so you guys can check that out. Here you can see I put down this like random enclosure these wood basic shelters. I couldn't be bothered. It was the end of like 2 or 3 hours. I was like, I'm not gonna design a full another building for these peacocks to hang out at. They can hang out at this one. It makes sense. But here you can see it's not a crazy habitat. It's just something kind of functional. And here we are back at normal speed, and I'm just going to wrap that up here. So thank you guys so much for watching. Really, it means a lot. Leave a like and subscribe, and be back tomorrow for more content. Hopefully I'll have a video up tomorrow for you guys.